Well, good morning as we come together to almost the last message in our series through the book of Ecclesiastes. And I know some of you are probably right now inside cheering and saying, yes, we're finally through the book. Now, most of you are too polite to actually cheer out loud when we get to the end, but it's a difficult book. As we begin in chapter 11 today, the title is To Boldly Go. It reminded me of a song and a musical song from years ago. Not a Christian song or specifically a Christian story, but I remember listening to a song from the man from La Mancha, or the man of La Mancha, Don Quixote de la Mancha, and he sings this song about the impossible dream and the one who would fight and keep moving no matter how far, and to boldly go forward. See, through much of this book, the preacher has been speaking of prudence, of things that don't work before the Lord. And in many ways, as we look at prudence, it can be discouraging. And yet here we have, in the beginning of verses, or chapters 11 and 12, a final charge to go boldly and to live the life that you have. I'm going to take and begin reading in chapter 11, verse 1, and I'm going to read through all the way to verse 8. Of chapter 12. Cast your bread upon the surface of the waters, for you will find it after many days. Divide your portions to 7, or even to 8, for you do not know what misfortune may occur on the earth. If the clouds are full, they pour out rain on the earth, and whether a tree falls to the south or the north, wherever the tree falls, there it lies. He who watches the wind will not sow, and he who looks at the clouds will not weep. Just as you do not know the path of the wind and how the bones are formed in the womb of the pregnant woman, so you do not know the activity of God who makes all things. Sow your seed in the morning, and do not be idle in the evening, for you do not know whether morning or evening sowing will succeed, or whether both of them alike will be good. Light is pleasant, and it is good to the eyes to see the sun. Indeed, a man should live many years. Let him rejoice in them all. Let him remember the days of darkness, for they will be many. Eventually, or everything that is to come, will be futility. Rejoice, young man, during your childhood, and let your heart be pleasant during the days of young manhood. And follow the impulses of your heart and the desires of your eyes, yet know that God will bring you to judgment for all these things. So remove grief and anger from your heart and put away pain from your body, because childhood and the prime of life are fleeting. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come, and the years draw near when you will say, I have no delight in them. Before the sun and light and moon and stars are darkened, and clouds return after the rain, and that day that the watchmen of the house tremble, and the mighty men stoop, and grinding ones stand idle, because they are few, and those who look through windows grow dim. And the doors on the street are shut as the sound of the grinding mill is low, and one will arise at the sound of the bird, and all the daughters of song will sing softly. Furthermore, men are afraid of a high place, and terrors on the high road. The almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper drags himself along, and the caperberry is ineffective, for man goes to his eternal home, while mourners go about in the street. Remember him before the silver cord is broken, and the golden bowl is crushed, and the pitcher by the well is shattered, and the wheel at the cistern is crushed. Then dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, all is vanity. Now, I've just read through those verses, and you may have remembered how I introduced this, that this is a good charge and a pleasant charge, if you will, and then we hear about the dust will return to the earth and the vanity of vanities, and all is vanity. And you might wonder, what is he saying? This is a good and pleasant charge? It certainly doesn't sound like it. But we know that the preacher is shown the difficulties of this world. And his admonition is to continue on through these difficulties. That there's risk and a time and a limit on all things. He says that there is risk in this world. As you begin through chapter 11, cast your bread on the surface of the waters, for you will find it after many days. Divide your portion to 7 or 8, for you do not know what misfortune may occur on the earth. Many have likely said this was in reference to trading by the sea, where grain would be shipped, literally the bread, over all the earth. And the preacher is saying, do this, even though it's a risky venture. We know it's risky because he says to divide among 7 or 8 and not put all of your eggs in one basket, as it will. Because you don't know. This ship might go down, but if you split it up among 8 and you continue to move forward, one of them will get through. You don't know what misfortune's going to come. We don't know what's going to happen, whether there's rain in the right time or how a tree is going to stand or fall. We can watch the wind and we can watch the clouds and determine that we're only going to wait for the right time when there's very little and no risk. And yet if you do that, you never will actually sow and do. Finally, after all this book, he says, you do not know the path of the wind and how the bones are formed in the womb of the pregnant woman, so you do not know the activity of God who makes all things. This world is not under our control. There is risk. It's not something that we can comprehend or even comprehend God's purpose in it. And so there is risk. Sometimes we'll say, oh, if you're doing the right, nothing can go wrong if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Here the word is different. Is saying there is risk. There is misfortune, and you don't know how it's going to turn out. But do it anyway. Be prudent, but do it anyway. This world has risk. And one of the highlight points of faith is to continue to go, trusting in the Lord and in His purposes and plan, even in the midst of the risk of this world. We don't deny the risk. If we denied the risk, then we would not need faith. We know that the risk is there and do it in faith. And then we see, after evaluating the risk and desiring to go on, there's an admonition of the time of life and what's been given. It says, sow your seed in the morning and do not be idle in the evening, for you do not know which will succeed, but so do it in the morning. Don't wait. It says, light's pleasant, good to the eyes to see the sun. It says one more time in verse 9, rejoice, young man, during your childhood, and let your heart be pleasant during the days of your young manhood. Follow the impulse of your heart, desires your eyes, yet know God will bring you to judgment for all these things. So remove grief and anger from your heart and put away pain from your body, because childhood and the prime of life are fleeting. The preacher at this time is probably an old man. Whether it is Solomon or another, many would say that it is Solomon looking back at his life and looking at his life and saying that there was a need to move forward even in young manhood. He's past that time now. Speaking to young men and women, saying, this time that you've been given, this time of life is fleeting. Make use of it. He's given all of the things to watch out for, the things to be prudent for, the risks, and yet says to enjoy it, to husband it, to use it. It's a sad thing to see someone saying, well, I'll get around to that one of these days. Or, you know what, I don't really want to do that right now. He's saying life is fleeting. You only live once, as would be said now. Use this time. Because we've been placed here for a purpose and will be brought to account before the Lord of what we've done with the purpose and the time. So use this gift of youth. Sometimes we say youth is wasted on the youth or wasted on the young. And in some ways that can be true, because you think, we have the whole life ahead of me to take and do all these other things. And Solomon knows more than any other that it's fleeting. He says, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before evil days come, and the years draw near when you say, I will have no delight in them. He's saying, don't wait till later. but take and use your life for the Lord now. Acknowledge Him, remember Him. Because the gifts of life and physical health and enjoyment that you have now will not come again. They've been given for you to use for His glory and to remember Him. Perhaps even as Solomon was thinking, how should I have used my time as a young man or a middle-aged man? And I keep on saying Solomon because it seems to fit that the might-have-beens of his life, if this is indeed an old man who's looked and how he has spent his life wishing that he could do it over again. If indeed he had a revival of faith after many years, and after knowing where the Lord had said the kingdom would go, looking back, could he have done it differently? Because he sees the day approaching. It says, before sun and light and moon and stars are darkened, and the clouds return after the rain. And over again, this specter begins to haunt him of death. It's an important thing to be told and to understand when you're young, because you never think that it's going to happen. You always have more time right up until when you don't. It was brought home so starkly for me when I was a young man, and I had a friend who went to work, and there was an accident industrially. He was ready to be engaged, to be married soon. He went to work and he was fully living at 8 o'clock. By 10 o'clock he was dead. Life is such a fleeting thing, and not something to waste. And that's a lesson that can best be taught by the old or the older. And many come with regrets to their what they could have done, what they should have done. Unless we think that we must move into our time full of regrets, the limit here is also exciting in some ways. Because even though he is an old man, the preacher knows that the limit is not just old age. He's told the young man to use his youth, to use the strength of his youth, and all these things before the final time. It says the final time, before the silver cord is broken, the golden bowl is crushed, the pitcher by the well is shattered, the wheel at the cistern is crushed, and the dust will return to the earth, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. The preacher's limit is not old age, is not infirmity. His limit is, it's a time to be going and doing for the Lord right up until that point when the Spirit returns to the Lord who gave it. There are many who come through life with regrets, and they feel perhaps that there's nothing left for them to do. And the encouragement is, are you still breathing? Not crumbled away to dust? Then you still have a chance to serve the Lord, to know Him, to remember Him. And it's that limit. There is no other. This was brought home again to me as I went through the candidate school for missionaries with village missions in small places. Many of the men who were, and women, the couples who were coming, I think the average age might have been in their 50s or 60s. Many were coming who had already done something, but they wanted to continue to go and to continue to serve. Some would come from the line of business. Some had done other ministry. But I was excited to see them because they knew that God wasn't done with them yet. Because they weren't in the ground yet. See, that's our bold quest of faith, is to go out into the world with the risks, with the uncertainty. Even now, especially, we see uncertainty. And make use of the time that we've been given. Whether it's youth or age. But to move forward. To move forward until that limit is reached. The Lord is not done with us until that time. And our role may change over time. As many get older, it is a time where they can no longer do, but they can mentor those who can and support them and bring them along. And that's an important use of time until that final limit. And it's important both for those moving and both the younger and the older to realize that that relationship can be great. Both for the younger to realize that of bringing in age and wisdom and learning to help them. The older realizing to mentor. And yet also that they're not going to be the ones doing it anymore, but supporting. Through all of the wisdom of Solomon, the Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, we see this one who's been through it all, the good, the bad, the ugly, the painful, passing this on and saying, yes, life is hard. And you're never going to understand it. If you wait to understand it, you'll never do it. Been through all of that you're going through. And encouraging them on to do what needs to be done. That's where for all of the difficulties and the problems that the book of Ecclesiastes notes in this and in the final verses, which we'll look at next week. Again, the idea is to press on in the Lord until we draw our final breath and our eyes close in death. Not for our own glory, not for our own worth. If we push for ourselves, then verse 8 is most true. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. All that is done will soon be past, and only that which is done for Christ will last. Again, this is the charge of an old man to those younger, encouraging them to avoid the vanity, in many ways, the vanity that he himself had locked himself into. This sentiment is echoed again in the New Testament, when Christ says, "See now the fields are ripe for harvest, and it's light. Go and work in the light, for the darkness is coming when no man can work." So what is our goal? What is our charge today? Everyone hearing this is still alive. And as such, regardless of the uncertainty of your world and the risk, we must work while the light and the Spirit remains for the Lord. Because anything that we do on our own, not for Him, is vanity. It won't last, no matter how much we think it will. Are we young, given youth and power and health? Are we using it for the Lord, or are we using it to make ourselves secure and comfortable? None of that will last. There is no way to become secure and comfortable in our own strength, because the world is inherently risky. There's no way to secure it. Are we putting our effort in the gift of life that we've been given to those things which matter, to the things of the Lord? Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come. And the years draw when you say, "I have no delight in them, I'm just existing, and I would like to go home." Too tired, too old, too broken down. While you've been given this life, what are you doing? Maybe you are tired and old and it's a little harder to take and get up every morning than it was the morning before. And you're just tired. It's okay to be tired. It's not okay to quit, because our limit hasn't been reached yet. We're still breathing. What is the Lord having you to do? Is it different than what it was before? Who are you helping to bring forward in the kingdom of the Lord? It's a deep charge from the preacher. After all this, the world is a dangerous place, but we boldly go and follow our Lord. And we never quit. And that's truly a great deal of the message of the book of Ecclesiastes. It refines away all these other things that we would want to take and have, all these other things we would trust in. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. This won't work. This will work, but you're going to have pain and suffering. It whittles away at the things that we would like to hold on to. To say, the world is a dangerous place, but move forward in faith, in the fear of the Lord, because He is the one that controls. He is the one that creates meaning. Doesn't exist outside of Him. And for the time that we're here, to follow Him. And so what are we doing? And we need to think about it quickly because our time is running out. It's not out yet. We're still here. Let's pray, and then we're going to sing our final song and be dismissed. Lord, I just pray, Lord, give us wisdom. Wisdom to deal with the risks, with the trials of this world. Lord, they are very real. They are beyond us, but they're not beyond you. And I pray for myself and for everyone here that you would keep us trusting and moving for you, Lord, however you would have us until that final day. Lord, I pray this in your name. Amen.